Millionaire CEO offered $1 million for a night with a poor immigrant and fell for her. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from and how old you are, and subscribe to our channel to receive new stories every day that will touch your heart. I hope you enjoy the story. The New York night pulsed with the energy of 1,000 million ambitions, a symphony of flashing taxi lights and distant sirens. Inside, the Gilded Spoon, a Michelin-starred sanctuary of hushed whispers and clinking crystal, Alexander Alex Sterling was at the epicenter. His suit, a bespoke masterpiece of charcoal wool, seemed to absorb the ambient light, making him a figure of understated power. He raised a flute of Dom Perignon, its bubbles reflecting the shimmering chandeliers, and clinked it against the glass of his chief financial officer, a man whose smile was as polished as his silver cufflinks. "To Apex Innovations," Alex declared, his voice a low, resonant baritone that commanded attention even in the quiet hum of the exclusive restaurant. Another milestone, another billion-dollar contract secured. His eyes, a striking Arctic blue, held a glint of satisfaction, but little genuine warmth. Alex Sterling had it all: fortune beyond most dreams, a sprawling empire built on relentless innovation and ruthless efficiency. His mind was a steel trap, capable of dissecting markets and anticipating trends with chilling accuracy. Yet, beneath this veneer of unparalleled success lay an unsettling coldness, a deep-seated conviction that every person, every principle, had its ultimate price. He'd seen it time and again: loyalty bought, integrity compromised, dreams traded for comfort. It was a universal truth in his universe. As the celebration continued, Alex's gaze drifted across the opulent dining room. His eyes, usually scanning for potential deals or weaknesses, settled on a figure that seemed almost out of place amidst the polished silver and hushed extravagance. Isabella "Bella" Castillo moved with a quiet grace between tables, a blur of dark uniform against the pristine white tablecloths. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, revealing delicate features, and her eyes, a deep, expressive brown, held a wisdom that seemed to defy her youthful appearance. They carried the silent weight of long hours, early mornings, and distant dreams, dreams of family in a faraway land, of a future forged through sheer grit. She wasn't just another server. There was an undeniable aura about her, a tranquil dignity in her every movement, a quiet purity that stirred something unfamiliar within Alex. It wasn't just her undeniable beauty, but an unyielding spirit he sensed, an intriguing anomaly in his meticulously controlled world. A flicker of curiosity, mixed with the ingrained arrogance of a man accustomed to having every whim indulged, sparked within Alex. He decided then and there to test the limits of this peculiar dignity. He raised a hand, a subtle gesture that nonetheless immediately caught Bella's attention. She approached his table, a professional smile gracing her lips, poised and ready for his order. "Señorita Castillo," Alex began, his voice a smooth, silken murmur that held an unmistakable undertone of command. He produced a crisp, white envelope from the inner pocket of his blazer. It contained a blank check, already filled out with his signature, a testament to his absolute power. He held it out, letting it hover between them. "I'm a man who appreciates exceptional service and unique individuals. For your time, for your company tonight, I am prepared to offer you $1 million. His Arctic blue eyes, accustomed to witnessing swift surrender, gleamed with the certainty of his impending victory. He saw no hesitation, only a simple transaction. Bella froze. The soft, ambient hum of the restaurant faded into a deafening silence around them, a silence that seemed to scream with the audacity of his words. Her face, usually serene, visibly paled, then flushed a furious crimson. Her breath caught in her throat, a sharp gasp of disbelief and indignation. Her gaze dropped to the offensive piece of paper, then snapped back to meet his with the intensity that startled him. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out, her fingers trembling slightly as they closed around the check. Alex watched, a flicker of triumph beginning to form in his chest. She's taking it, he thought, the familiar confirmation of his power. But then, to his utter disbelief, her hands moved with a decisive, almost defiant energy. With a sharp, tearing sound that seemed to reverberate through the hushed room, Bella ripped the check into tiny, jagged pieces. They fluttered down, a cascade of white snow, onto the polished mahogany of his table, landing amidst the expensive silverware and scattered crumbs of his celebration. "My dignity, sir," she articulated, her voice surprisingly steady though low, each word sharp and precise, "is not for sale, not for 1 million, and certainly not for 1 billion. Her eyes, usually soft, blazed with a fire that seemed to consume the very air between them. Without another word, without a backward glance, Bella turned on her heel and walked away, her departure as graceful and unyielding as her rejection. She left Alex Sterling utterly stunned, a solitary figure amidst the curious stares of his bewildered guests and the silent judgment of the Michelin-starred walls. $1 million rejected. It was an impossibility, a concept that simply did not compute in Alex's meticulously ordered universe of quantifiable values. The vivid image of Bella, her head held high, her small frame radiating an unshakable resolve, branded itself onto his mind. His victory, his carefully constructed narrative of control, had just crumbled into the most profound and unexpected defeat of his entire life. He was speechless, adrift in a sea of his own shattered expectations, completely at a loss for how to react. The fallout from Alex's public humiliation was swift and brutal. Within hours of the incident at the Gilded Spoon, a shaky, smartphone-recorded video had exploded across the internet. Its title, emblazoned across every social media feed, screamed, "Millionaire CEO humiliated by immigrant waitress. Money can't buy everything." Alex Sterling, accustomed to seeing his name in headlines for multi-billion-dollar acquisitions and technological breakthroughs, was now the unwilling star of viral memes and late-night talk show jokes. His press team was in a frenzy, their frantic calls and urgent strategy meetings a constant buzzing static in his ear, yet he barely registered their pleas. The initial surge of white-hot rage, a familiar companion in his cutthroat world, slowly began to give way to something far more insidious, a gnawing, unprecedented obsession. He couldn't shake the image of her face, defiant and unyielding, as those shredded pieces of paper drifted onto his table. He tried to find her again, but this time he instinctively knew his usual blunt force approach wouldn't work. His first attempts were almost pathetic in their familiarity, a colossal bouquet of rare orchids delivered to the Gilded Spoon, accompanied by a discreet envelope containing a handwritten apology, or perhaps, he admitted to himself, a thinly veiled secret test of her resolve. He waited, an uncharacteristic tension knotting his stomach. The flowers, still perfectly fresh, were returned the next morning, along with a small, neatly folded note. Her handwriting was elegant, firm. "I am not an object, Mr. Sterling." Each polite, succinct refusal from Bella was like a jolt of electricity, forcing Alex to confront the sheer futility of his established methods. His wealth, his power, his reputation, they were meaningless against her quiet strength. Determined to truly understand this woman who had so effortlessly dismantled his perception of the world, Alex launched a discreet investigation. He hired the best private investigators money could buy, instructing them to leave no stone unturned, to uncover any weakness, any hidden debt, any yearning he might exploit. He devoured their reports, expecting to find the usual vulnerabilities: a struggling family, a desperate need for funds, a hidden vice. But the dossiers were astonishingly thin, yet remarkably consistent. Isabella Bella Castillo, an exchange student from a small, vibrant town in Latin America, meticulously balancing full-time work with her studies, all to support her family back home. There were no secret gambling debts, no lavish spending, no hidden scandals, just a life woven from hard work, quiet sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to her dignity. Her employment history was spotless, her references glowing, her character unimpeachable. She was an anomaly, a living refutation of everything he thought he knew about human nature. The reports kept circling back to one place, O Cantinho do Saber, a small, unassuming café nestled on a cobblestone street in a quieter part of the city. Its facade was painted a cheerful yellow, with window boxes spilling over with bright red geraniums. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries seemed to waft from its very bricks. Alex, driven by a compulsion he couldn't name, decided to go there himself. He pulled up in a nondescript black car, a stark contrast to his usual gleaming limousine, and parked a block away. Dressed in a simple dark hoodie and jeans, with a baseball cap pulled low, he felt like a spy in his own city. He watched her through the cafe's steamed-up windows. Bella was a whirlwind of quiet efficiency, her movements practiced and precise as she balanced trays laden with steaming mugs and plates of empanadas. He saw her smile warmly at an elderly couple, patiently explaining the menu to a tourist, laughing softly with Elena Petrova, her colleague and friend, as they refilled sugar caddies. There was a genuine warmth emanating from her, a light that seemed to make the cozy cafe even brighter. He noticed the easy rapport she had with Mr. Morales, the cafe's owner, a kind-eyed man with a weathered face and hands stained from years of grinding coffee beans. They would often share hushed conversations by the counter at the end of Bella's shift, almost like father and daughter. Alex felt a pang of something he couldn't identify, perhaps envy, for a connection so simple and pure. One brisk autumn afternoon, Alex watched as Bella stepped outside, pulling her jacket tighter against the crisp wind. She saw a young man, barely older than herself, huddled on a bench across the street, his shoulders slumped, a faded backpack at his feet. He looked lost, overwhelmed by the sprawling city. Without hesitation, Bella approached him, a small, paper-wrapped pastry in her hand. Alex couldn't hear their words, but he saw her gentle gestures, the way she offered the food, then pointed patiently down the street, clearly giving directions to local shelters or community services. He saw the young man's face lift, a spark of hope in his eyes. That moment hit Alex with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't about money. It was about compassion. It was about a genuine humanity that existed outside the sterile boardrooms and cutthroat negotiations of his world. Here was Bella, struggling herself, yet effortlessly extending kindness to a complete stranger. It was a stark contrast to the transactional nature of his own life, where every interaction seemed to have a hidden cost or a calculated benefit. For the first time in his meticulously structured existence, Alex Sterling genuinely asked himself, is there more to life than money? And if the answer was yes, a terrifying and exhilarating thought, then Bella, the unassuming waitress who had scorned his $1 million, was undeniably the key. His world, once so rigidly defined by wealth, was beginning to fracture, and the cracks were letting in a light he never knew he needed. Alex's visits to O Cantinho do Sabor became a quiet ritual, a stark contrast to his usual whirlwind schedule. He shed the meticulously tailored suits, opting instead for worn jeans, a plain dark hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low, shielding his famous face. His expensive watches were swapped for a simple, leather-strapped timepiece. He never sought Bella out, never demanded her service. He'd simply pick a table in a dim corner, ordering a black coffee, always black, mirroring the starkness of his current emotional landscape, and wait. At first, Bella's glances held a veiled suspicion, a flicker of recognition in her dark eyes, but Alex kept his interactions minimal, just a polite nod or a murmured, "Thank you." He spent hours just observing, soaking in the cafe's warm, lived-in atmosphere. The scent of roasted beans mingled with the sweet spice of cinnamon and the savory notes of frying plantains. He listened to the cheerful chatter of regulars, the clatter of porcelain, the easy laughter between Bella and Eleanor. It was a world entirely alien to his sterile, high-stakes existence, and yet paradoxically it felt more real, more vibrant. Slowly, imperceptibly, he began to engage Bella. Not about business deals or market trends, topics that now felt hollow and meaningless, but about the tapestry of life in New York. "It's a big city, isn't it?" he'd begin, peering over the rim of his mug. "Must be tough, adjusting." Bella, her initial reserve slowly thawing, would nod. "It is," she'd admit, wiping down the counter with practiced ease. "But it's also full of possibilities. If you work hard, anything is possible here." Her optimism, untainted by cynicism, captivated him. He began to pose hypothetical questions, thinly veiled explorations of his own burgeoning moral dilemmas. "Say you had a company," he started one rainy afternoon, the drumming of raindrops against the window pane a soothing rhythm. "And you discovered a flaw in a product. Fixing it would cost millions, maybe jeopardize a big deal. What would you do?" Bella paused, her brow furrowed in thought. She didn't hesitate with her answer. "If it affected people, if it wasn't right, you fix it. Even if it costs everything. What kind of success is built on harm?" Her conviction was absolute, her dark eyes shining with an almost fierce honesty. "No amount of money is worth your conscience, Mr. Client." She didn't know his name, not truly. He was just another face in the crowd, a seemingly thoughtful stranger. Another time, he probed deeper. What if someone offered you a fortune, a life of ease, but it meant compromising your principles, accepting something you knew was wrong, just to make life easier? He watched her intently, his heart pounding a little harder than usual. This was the ultimate test. Bella scoffed, a soft, dismissive sound. "That's not ease, that's a cage dressed in gold. My mother always said, sleep with a clear conscience even if your bed is hard." She met his gaze directly, a quiet challenge in her eyes. "True freedom is knowing you stood by what you believe. No money can buy that. No amount of comfort can replace that feeling." These conversations were a profound revelation for Alex. He began to see the staggering simplicity of Bella's worldview as an unshakable strength, not a naive weakness. She navigated the world through the unwavering lens of her values, while he had always calculated it in figures, in profits and losses. He questioned everything he had dedicated his life to. What had he truly lost in his relentless pursuit of fortune? The icy detachment that had defined him for so long was slowly, irrevocably melting. The attraction he felt for Bella deepened with every shared word, transcending mere physical appeal. It was an attraction to her very essence, her unyielding character, her pure heart. One particularly quiet evening, as the last rays of sunlight filtered through the cafe window, casting long shadows across the checkered floor, Bella mentioned her family. "My little sister Sophia," she began, her voice softening, a wistful smile playing on her lips. "She just started high school. I wish I could send them more. My parents, they work so hard, but times are tough back home." Her eyes, usually so resilient, held a flicker of deep concern, a burden she carried with quiet grace. Alex felt an unfamiliar pang in his chest, a tight knot of helplessness. Here he was, a man who could buy islands, launch rockets, and reshape markets. Yet he understood, with a crushing clarity, that he couldn't simply solve Bella's problem with a transfer of funds. To do so would corrupt the very dignity he now so deeply admired. to diminish the woman who was slowly, painstakingly, teaching him what it truly meant to be human. He was at a crossroads, caught between the lie he was living and the truth he longed to share. The weight of his deception, of hiding his true identity, pressed down on him with increasing force. Every shared laugh, every vulnerable confession from Bella, made the secret feel heavier, more dishonest. He knew, with an unsettling certainty, that the truth, when it finally emerged, could shatter the fragile trust they had painstakingly built. Yet to continue living this charade was becoming an unbearable burden. The moment of revelation, he realized, was not just inevitable, it was necessary, and he knew, with a tremor of fear and anticipation, that it would change everything. The air in O Cantinho do Sabor was heavy, thick with unspoken truths. The last customer had left 15 minutes ago, their laughter fading into the street noise. Mr. Morales had given them a knowing glance before retreating to the back, leaving Alex and Bella alone amidst the quiet clatter of Bella clearing tables. Alex knew he couldn't put it off any longer. The weight of his secret, which had felt like a small pebble in his pocket at first, had grown into a crushing boulder on his chest. "Bella," he began, his voice surprisingly soft in the echoing silence of the cafe. "Can we talk? Really talk?" Bella paused, a half-wiped table between them. She looked at him, her dark eyes reflecting the soft glow of the overhead lights. There was a flicker of something unreadable in her gaze. Curiosity, perhaps, or a subtle wariness. "We talk every day, Alex," she replied, her voice gentle, but with a hint of fatigue from a long shift. "No," he insisted, pushing himself up from the counter stool. "Not about hypothetical business problems. About me. About us." He gestured to one of the small checkered tables by the window, where the last lingering scent of coffee clung to the air. "Please, sit." Bella hesitated for a moment, then slowly walked over and took a seat opposite him. Her back was straight, her posture proud, even in her worn work uniform. Alex slid into the chair facing her, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He took a deep, shaky breath, the rich aroma of stale coffee beans filling his lungs. This was it, the moment of truth. "Bella," he started, his voice barely a whisper, then gathering strength, "I'm not just some random customer. My name, it's Alexander Sterling." He watched her face closely, bracing himself for the inevitable reaction. "I'm the CEO, the man who offered you $1 million that night at the Gilded Spoon." The words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. The color drained from Bella's face as if a plug had been pulled. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound escaped. Her dark eyes, usually so warm and expressive, hardened, a mosaic of emotions swirling within them, shock, followed by a searing pain, then a betrayal so profound it was almost tangible, and finally, a simmering anger. Her hand instinctively clenched into a fist on the table, her knuckles turning white. "You," she finally choked out, her voice barely audible, a raw whisper of disbelief. She pushed her chair back abruptly, the scraping sound harsh against the quiet. She was on her feet in an instant, her movements stiff, as if her body had become rigid with indignation. Her eyes flashed with furious tears that threatened to spill. "You lied to me. All this time, you were playing a game?" She took a step back, as if to put distance between them, ready to bolt. Alex shot up, reaching out, not to grab her, but to block her path, his hands open in a gesture of desperate plea. "Please, Bella, don't go, don't leave, just please hear me out. Give me 5 minutes, that's all I ask." His voice was raw, unfamiliar even to his own ears. He, Alexander Sterling, who commanded boardrooms with a single glance, was now pleading, his vulnerability exposed. Bella stopped, her body rigid, her back to him. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. "What more is there to say, Mr. Sterling?" she asked, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. "You tried to buy me, and when that didn't work, you decided to pretend, to study me like some exotic specimen." "No, no, it wasn't like that," Alex insisted, his voice cracking with genuine remorse. He stepped closer, his voice softening, pleading. "I know I messed up, terribly. I was arrogant, presumptuous. I saw the world in transactions, Bella. Everything had a price tag, but your refusal, your dignity, it hit me like nothing ever has. It dismantled everything I thought I knew." He exhaled slowly, the weight of years of emotional repression finally cracking. It was like looking into a mirror for the first time and seeing a stranger. He paused, collecting himself, before taking another shaky breath. This was the hardest part. "My life, Bella," he began, his gaze dropping to his hands, clasped tightly together. "It's always been empty. My parents were titans of industry just like me, but they were cold, distant. Love and attention in my family were commodities, earned through achievements, through more money, more power. I learned early on that material success was synonymous with personal worth, with happiness. I never learned what it truly meant to love, or to be loved, genuinely." His voice, usually so controlled, so devoid of emotion, now trembled with a raw vulnerability that Bella had never imagined existed within a man like him. He felt a burning sensation behind his eyes, a feeling he hadn't experienced since he was a small boy. "Your refusal, Bella," he continued, meeting her gaze, his blue eyes pleading. "It made me question everything. It made me see that I was living a lie. A gilded cage, just like you once said. I didn't know what genuine value was, what true connection felt like, until I met you." Bella stood motionless for a long moment, the anger slowly draining from her face, replaced by a complex mix of surprise and a burgeoning empathy. The pain of his deception still lingered, a sharp ache in her chest, but the sheer honesty in his eyes, the undeniable tremor in his voice, the raw, unadulterated pain he radiated, it was undeniable. She saw not the powerful CEO, but a broken man, lost despite his billions. "You hurt me, Alex," she finally said, her voice softer, tinged with a lingering sadness. "You made me feel cheap, like a thing to be acquired." She took a deep breath, her gaze searching his. "But I see you're being honest now, truly honest." She slowly walked back to the table, sinking back into her chair. Her eyes, though still wary, held a flicker of understanding. "So, what now, Alexander Sterling?" she challenged softly, her voice still a little shaky. "You've confessed your sins, but words aren't enough. Can you prove you've changed? Can you seek something more than money? Can you find a purpose not dictated by a balance sheet?" Alex felt a flicker of hope, a fragile, tender sprout in the barren landscape of his soul. "I want to, Bella," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to. Show me how." From that day forward, their relationship began to rebuild, slowly, carefully, brick by brick. It was founded on a new bedrock of shared vulnerability, unexpected understanding, and a mutual desire for something deeper. Bella began to see Alex not just as the powerful CEO, but as a man desperately searching for redemption, yearning for a connection beyond the material. Alex, in turn, experienced the profound joy of genuine connection, a bond forged not by convenience or transaction, but by shared truth and quiet moments of understanding. It was a joy money could never, ever buy. Their hearts, once so distant, now began to intertwine, weaving a romance that no one in the bustling, cynical city of New York could have ever predicted. But this fragile tranquility wouldn't last. In the shadows, a watchful, envious eye was observing their burgeoning happiness. Marcus Thorne, Alex's most ruthless business rival, was about to play his dirtiest card yet, and Bella, unknowingly, would become his most devastating weapon. The burgeoning happiness between Alex and Bella, a quiet flame carefully nurtured in the heart of O Cantinho do Sabor, was an open target for Marcus Thorne. Marcus, a predatory rival who lived to dismantle Alex's every success, had an uncanny ability to sniff out vulnerabilities. It wasn't long before whispers of the viral CEO and the waitress reached his ears, followed quickly by the full story of the $1 million check. For Thorne, this wasn't just gossip. It was a golden opportunity, a perfectly aimed shot at Alex's most sensitive spots, his meticulously crafted image and his sprawling business empire. He started subtly, planting seeds of doubt in the fertile ground of online forums and tabloid news. Headlines began to emerge: Sterling's latest folly, exploiting the vulnerable. Tech giant's CEO caught in alleged scheme with immigrant waitress. The old video, once a source of humiliation, was now re-edited, presented as proof of Alex's alleged predatory behavior. Look at his face. A venomous online commentator would snarl in a viral clip, "The entitlement. He thinks he can buy anyone, anything." Alex's reputation on the stock market, usually unshakable, began to show cracks. Apex Innovations shares experienced unusual volatility. His board members, once fiercely loyal, now peppered him with concerned calls. "Alex, this negative publicity, it's affecting investor confidence." His CFO, a nervous man named David, stammered during a tense video conference. "We need to control the narrative." Alex merely stared at the screen, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He knew this wasn't just about optics. This was Marcus, but Marcus Thorne was never content with mere skirmishes. He craved outright demolition. He knew Bella's Achilles heel, her precarious immigration status. With chilling precision, Thorne reached out to a network of contacts, his gaze falling upon a notoriously corrupt, mid-level official within the U.S. Immigration Department. A hefty, untraceable sum exchanged hands. The allegation was carefully fabricated, designed to hit Bella where she was most vulnerable. Isabella Castillo, on a student visa, working in excess of legal hours, suspicious remittances to overseas accounts. The objective was horrifyingly clear. Threaten Bella with deportation, using her pain and desperation as leverage to force Alex into a disastrous business decision, perhaps even selling off a crucial division of Apex Innovations to cover unexpected legal fees or settlements. The trap was laid. One crisp Tuesday morning, Bella was humming softly as she wiped down the counter at O Cantinho do Sabor, the aroma of fresh pastries mingling with the early morning calm. Elena was still in the back, prepping ingredients. The bell above the door chimed, and Bella looked up expecting a customer. Instead, two men in dark suits entered, their faces grim, their movements deliberate. They flashed badges. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, one of them stated, his voice devoid of warmth. "Isabella Castillo, we have some questions regarding your student visa status." Bella felt a sudden, ice-cold wave of dread wash over her. Her hands, still clutching the damp cloth, trembled. My visa is valid," she stammered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I follow all the rules." "That's what we need to determine," the second agent said, his eyes scanning the small cafe. "You'll need to come with us for an interview." Fear, cold and paralyzing, seized Bella. She looked around, desperate, but the cafe was empty, save for the agents. "But my shift," she began. "Mr. Morales will understand," the first agent cut in, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This is not optional, Miss Castillo." She was led out, her mind reeling, the familiar bustling street suddenly looking alien and menacing. The agents were polite, but their questions were relentless, probing every detail of her life, her work, her family's finances. Bella maintained her composure with a strength she didn't know she possessed, explaining her situation with quiet dignity, detailing every hour worked, every dollar sent home, every rule meticulously followed. But she could feel the invisible threads tightening around her, the weight of the accusation pressing down. Alex received the news from his frantic legal team. "Mr. Sterling, the immigration department just picked up Isabella Castillo. They're questioning her visa status. It looks like a targeted investigation." Alex felt an icy dread crawl up his spine. His blood ran cold. "Bella," he whispered, the name a raw plea. He knew instantly this wasn't a coincidence. This was Marcus Thorne. The idea of Bella, so pure, so honest, caught in this web of corruption, possibly deported, ripped from his life. It was infinitely more terrifying than any financial ruin Marcus could inflict. Losing Bella was a price he couldn't afford to pay. He immediately mobilized his vast network, contacting the most expensive immigration lawyers, leveraging his influence, making calls that would typically move mountains. But he soon discovered that the insidious tendrils of bureaucracy and the deep-seated rot of corruption were far more challenging to combat than any billion-dollar corporate takeover. Each phone call brought more disheartening news, more dead ends. "It's a very strong case against her, Mr. Sterling," his lead lawyer, a seasoned veteran of countless legal battles, admitted grimly. "Someone clearly wanted this to happen. The evidence, even if circumstantial, is compelling. She's fighting an uphill battle." Bella, despite the crushing fear, continued to face every interrogation with an unyielding dignity. She refused to crumble, refused to let them see her break. But with each passing day, the threat of deportation became horrifyingly real, a dark cloud looming over her every breath. Marcus Thorne, meanwhile, observed from the shadows, a smug, triumphant smile playing on his lips. He was utterly convinced he had finally discovered Alex's true Achilles heel. The stage was now set for a brutal public confrontation, a high-stakes drama where Bella's fate and Alex's reputation would be determined, and the fragile, blossoming love between them would face its most agonizing, ultimate test. The clock was ticking. The day of Bella's immigration hearing dawned cold and grey, mirroring the churning anxiety in her stomach. The federal courthouse, a monolithic stone edifice usually reserved for high-stakes corporate battles, was a buzzing hive of activity. Reporters, tipped off by Marcus Thorne's insidious leaks, swarmed the entrance, their cameras flashing like predatory eyes, hungry for the next scandalous headline involving Alex Sterling. Inside, courtroom 3B was packed to capacity. Every seat was taken, and a throng of standing onlookers pressed against the back walls. Bella sat at the respondents' table, her posture remarkably straight, a silent testament to her unyielding spirit despite the pallor of her face. Her hands, clasped tightly in her lap, were cold, but her gaze was steady as she surveyed the hostile room. Beside her, Elena Petrova, her face etched with worry, squeezed her hand reassuringly. On Bella's other side, Mr. Morales, his kindly face unusually grim, patted her arm with a calloused hand. His presence was a quiet, steadfast anchor in the storm. A hush fell over the room as Marcus Thorne swept in, an unsettlingly triumphant smirk playing on his lips. Dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, flanked by two sharp-suited lawyers, he exuded an aura of self-congratulation. His eyes, glinting with malice, scanned the room, briefly lingering on Bella with a look of cold satisfaction before settling on the back row where Alex Sterling was seated. Thorne had crafted this moment with meticulous care. He intended to use Bella's vulnerability to publicly shatter Alex's reputation and, by extension, his empire. The hearing began. The immigration prosecutor, a stern woman with a clipped tone, presented the fabricated evidence, manipulated financial records, doctored timestamps on Bella's work hours, anonymous tips about illicit money transfers. Each piece of proof was designed to paint Bella as a calculating fraud, exploiting the system. Marcus Thorne was called as the prosecution's star witness. He took the stand with an almost theatrical flourish, his voice dripping with feigned concern. "I regret to say," he began, directing his gaze at the judge, "that Miss Castillo's case is an unfortunate example of exploitation, not by her, but of our generous immigration system. She has demonstrated a blatant disregard for the rules, sending substantial sums overseas while claiming student status. It's a pattern of deceit." He subtly implied that Alex was either complicit or incredibly naive. The pressure on Bella was immense. She felt the weight of every accusing gaze, every whispered judgment. Her breath hitched in her throat, but she refused to let her emotions show, gripping Elena's hand tighter under the table. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but her lawyer advised silence. Alex, from his vantage point at the back, felt a simmering rage building within him. He watched Bella's face, seeing the flicker of pain beneath her stoicism. He saw the cold, calculated cruelty in Thorne's eyes. This wasn't a legal battle. It was a personal vendetta, targeting the purest heart he had ever known. The arrogant CEO, the master manipulator of markets, had vanished. In his place was simply a man, desperate, terrified, and utterly devoted to protecting the woman he loved. Every fiber of his being screamed to intervene, to smash Thorne's smug face, but he knew he had to wait. His moment was coming. Finally, the prosecution rested its case. The defense called its first witness. And then the bailiff announced, "The defense calls Mr. Alexander Sterling." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Every head snapped towards Alex. A hush fell, thicker than before, expectant. Alex rose, his movements deliberate, every eye fixed on him. He wasn't wearing his customary bespoke suit, but a simple, well-fitting dark blazer and an open-collared shirt, a subtle yet powerful statement that he wasn't here as the titan of industry, but as a man stripped bare. As he walked towards the witness stand, he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The fear was still there, a tight knot in his stomach, but it was overshadowed by an unshakable resolve. He didn't climb into the witness box as a businessman about to deliver a corporate defense. He stood as a man transformed, ready to lay bare his soul. He didn't begin with legal jargon or corporate platitudes. His voice, though still resonant, held a profound, emotional depth the room had never heard before. "Your Honor," he began, his gaze sweeping across the courtroom, meeting Marcus Thorne's startled eyes for a fleeting moment before settling on Bella's pale, anxious face. "Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, for a very long time, my life was solely about money. I built an empire on the belief that everything and everyone had a price, that every value, every principle could eventually be bought or circumvented." He paused, a painful memory flashing through his eyes. "I truly believed that." He shifted his gaze to Bella, and in his eyes there was no arrogance, no calculation, only a tenderness that made her heart clench. "When I first met Miss Castillo, I tested that belief. I offered her $1 million for a night. A callous, arrogant act that I deeply regret." He saw Bella flinch, a flicker of renewed pain in her eyes, but she held his gaze, her breath caught. "I didn't see a person then. I saw an asset, a commodity, but she taught me otherwise. When she refused, when she looked me in the eye and said her dignity was not for sale, she cracked open my entire world." He took a deep breath, his voice swelling with emotion. "She taught me that dignity, character, and genuine love have no price tag. They are beyond currency, beyond acquisition. They are immeasurable. A ripple went through the courtroom. Reporters, initially focused on the scandal, now furiously scribbled notes, sensing a shift in the narrative. Then Alex turned fully to face the judge and the rows of cameras. His voice gained a steely edge, the familiar CEO's resolve returning, but now tempered with a newfound moral clarity. "Your Honor," he stated, his voice ringing with conviction, "this entire proceeding is a malicious fabrication. Marcus Thorne, my business rival, orchestrated this. He bribed an immigration official." Alex's lawyer, a formidable woman named Ms. Davies, stepped forward, placing a thick file of documents before the judge. "We have irrefutable evidence, Your Honor. Detailed call logs, bank transfers to a shell company traced back to Mr. Thorne, and sworn affidavits from former employees of his, detailing his efforts to defame me and exploit Miss Castillo." He then looked directly at Thorne, his blue eyes cold and unyielding. "Mr. Thorne is not here to seek justice, but to destroy lives out of pure greed and envy. He tried to ruin Miss Castillo's life, to shatter her dreams and deport her simply to get to me. This isn't just about business. It's about a man using his power to crush an innocent person, to manipulate a system that is meant to protect, not persecute." "Udidi." Alex then turned back to the court, his face softening slightly, yet his voice firm. "I take full responsibility for my initial deplorable actions towards Miss Castillo, but I am a changed man because of her. And to prove that change, and to help others like her who face similar challenges." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I am publicly announcing today the formation of the Castillo Sterling Foundation. I'm endowing it with the initial sum of $100 million from my personal fortune, dedicated to providing free legal aid, language training, and community support for immigrants across this country." A wave of murmurs, then hushed gasps, swept through the courtroom. "This foundation," Alex continued, his voice resonating with purpose, "will ensure that no other dignified individual faces persecution or exploitation because of their background or their pursuit of a better life. This is money being used for good, for justice, for humanity." The courtroom was plunged into complete silence, a stunned hush. The only sounds were the rapid clicks of camera shutters and the frantic scratching of reporters' pens on notepads. Thorne's face, once triumphant, had gone ashen, his jaw slack. Then Alex slowly turned from the judge, his eyes finding Bella's across the crowded room. His gaze was intense, overflowing with raw emotion and a profound, unwavering love. He walked directly to her, the eyes of the world following his every step. Bella, tears streaming silently down her face, watched him approach, her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and an exhilarating, almost unbelievable hope. He reached her, gently took her hand, his thumb tracing soft circles on her cold skin. He then did something utterly unexpected, something that made every jaw in the room drop. Right there, in the middle of a federal courtroom, with the eyes of the press, the judge and his bitter rival fixed upon him, Alexander Sterling knelt down. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Its lid clicked open, revealing a dazzling diamond ring that seemed to capture all the light in the room. "Isabella Castillo," he began, his voice thick with emotion, trembling slightly. "You saved me from a meaningless, empty life. You taught me what truly matters. You showed me that purpose and true fulfillment lie not in accumulating wealth, but in connection, in compassion, in genuine love." He looked up at her, his blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't want a life where money is my only measure of worth. I want a life with you where dignity, love, and truth are our pillars." His voice rose, clear and resounding. "Bella, my love, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Knowing I'll dedicate my fortune to build, not destroy. Knowing I'll always want to use my hands to help, not just to sign checks. Knowing we'll face complexities, but we'll face them together." A collective gasp, Then a storm of excited murmurs and camera flashes erupted. Bella, tears now openly streaming down her face, could barely speak past the lump in her throat. She looked at the man on his knee, the man who had once tried to buy her, now offering her his entire, transformed heart. This wasn't about money, it was about everything else. With a joyful sob, she nodded vigorously, her voice a raw, choked whisper that nonetheless echoed through the silence that followed. "Yes! Oh yes, Alex! 1,000 times, yes!" Alex, a radiant smile transforming his usually serious face, slipped the ring onto her trembling finger. It gleamed, a symbol of their unexpected, extraordinary journey. Then right there in front of the judge, the lawyers, the flashing cameras, and a dumbfounded Marcus Thorne, Alex Sterling pulled Bella into a long, tender, passionate kiss, sealing not just their destiny, but a new public perception of Alex Sterling and the invaluable worth of a love that money could never ever buy. The sound of rapid applause, initially from Bella's supporters, then spreading like wildfire, filled the courtroom. A spontaneous, heartfelt cheer for a love that had defied all odds. The image of Alex Sterling, the formidable CEO, kneeling in a federal courtroom, proposing to an immigrant waitress, exploded across global media, eclipsing every other news cycle. But this time, the virality was different. Gone were the sneering memes and cynical headlines. In their place were stories of redemption, of love's transformative power, of a man finding his soul. Alex, once the embodiment of corporate arrogance, had become a symbol of true change and authentic love. Bella, the dignified immigrant who had refused $1 million, became an overnight inspiration to millions, her quiet strength resonating with hearts worldwide. The legal repercussions for Marcus Thorne were swift and devastating. The evidence Alex presented in court, coupled with the ensuing federal investigation, unearthed a web of corruption and illegal business practices. Thorne's empire crumbled, his reputation irrevocably shattered, leading to indictments and the swift collapse of his company. Justice, for once, was served with remarkable speed. 2 months later, under a cerulean New York sky, Alex and Bella stood on a sun-dappled lawn, surrounded by the vibrant hues of a blossoming garden. Their wedding was intimate, a far cry from the opulent spectacle Alex's previous life would have dictated. There were no throngs of reporters, no ostentatious displays of wealth, just the soft murmur of close friends and cherished family, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the sweet scent of roses. Elena Petrova, radiant in a sapphire dress, dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, standing proudly beside Bella. Mr. Morales, his face beaming with paternal pride, stood beside Alex, a rare, genuine smile gracing his usually stoic features. And for the very first time, Bella's entire family, her parents, her younger sister Sophia, and several aunts and uncles, had managed to secure visas and travel to the United States. Their eyes, wide with wonder and overflowing with gratitude, were fixed on Bella, a testament to the dreams she had carried across oceans. Bella wore a simple, ethereal white gown, its soft lace falling gracefully to the ground. Her dark hair was adorned with delicate white flowers, and she was barefoot, feeling the cool blades of grass beneath her feet, a subtle nod to her grounded spirit. Alex, in a lightweight linen suit, stood beside her, also barefoot, his usual polished demeanor softened by an almost childlike joy. As the pastor pronounced them husband and wife and invited them to exchange personal vows, Alex turned to Bella, his blue eyes brimming with unshed tears, his voice thick with emotion. "Bella," he began, reaching for her hands, his touch tender. "My darling Bella, before you, my life was a ledger sheet, meticulously balanced but utterly empty. You showed me that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the values we hold, in the compassion we extend, and in the profound love we share. You taught me to look beyond the superficial, to feel, to connect. He squeezed her hands gently. I promise to use everything I have, all my resources, all my influence, not to accumulate more, but to build a better world with you. A world where dignity is never for sale, where every person is treated with respect, and where opportunities are truly accessible to all. I promise to be your partner, your rock, your student, and your devoted husband for all our days. Bella, her own eyes glistening with happy tears, a radiant smile illuminating her face, responded, Alex, my love, you came into my life like a storm, turbulent and overwhelming, but you stayed to learn, to grow, to change. You taught me that the greatest power doesn't come from money, but from the courage to admit your mistakes, to fight for what is right, and to embrace authenticity. You showed me that even the coldest hearts can melt, that even the most lost souls can find their way home. She tightened her grip on his hands. I promise to love you fiercely, to support you unconditionally, and to remind you every single day that honesty, compassion, and our bond are worth more than any million, more than any empire. I promise to build a life with you, filled with purpose and boundless love. As they sealed their vows with a tender kiss, the setting sun cast a golden glow over the garden, bathing them in warmth. Elena clapped enthusiastically, tears streaming down her face, while Mr. Morales offered a booming, heartfelt cheer. A few friends tossed rose petals, a gentle shower of blessings. The story of Alex and Bella became more than just a viral sensation. It transformed into a beacon of hope. With Bella's unwavering guidance and moral compass, Alex dramatically reshaped Apex Innovations. He spearheaded robust corporate social responsibility programs, investing heavily in initiatives that provided free tech education and job placement for underserved communities, particularly within immigrant populations. His company, once a symbol of ruthless capitalism, now stood for ethical business practices and genuine societal impact, creating jobs and opportunities where none had existed. Bella, never one to rest on laurels, continued her tireless work. While she never stopped serving her community directly, she now had the resources to amplify her impact, using her powerful voice and the Castillo Sterling Foundation, generously endowed by Alex, to advocate for immigrant rights, promote inclusion, and empower countless individuals to build new lives with dignity and respect. In New York, the sprawling metropolis that had once witnessed their dramatic clash of values, Alex and Bella proved unequivocally that true love cannot be bought. It is forged through honesty, upheld by dignity, and earned with the courage to truly be oneself without price, holding an inestimable value that transcends all material wealth. Their journey, a modern-day fairy tale woven from the threads of challenge and change, echoed a profound truth. For some, the price of dignity is not a cost, but the greatest treasure of all. We want to hear your opinion about this beautiful love story. Let us know what you thought of this plot full of emotions and surprises. Tell us your name, where you are watching from, and what score you would give this story from 0 to 10. A story that touched hearts. And if you enjoyed the storyline, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the amazing new stories coming up. See you next time.